Okay, my couture crafters, let's get into this random birthday card. I am using the stamp set by Sweet Treat Stamp Set by Sunny Studio Stamps, and it's a layering stamp set. Some elements have more layers than others, but they're really cute and fun. So to stamp out the waffle cone part, I'm using Altenews Crisp dye inks, which are made to layer. And they have all the colors, and I have all the colors, and due to where they're located in my home, I didn't want to pull out all the colors that I needed. So, of course, my Catherine Pooler stamps are right in front of me. So, I did the waffle cone with I think it's paper bag and like caramel cone in the Altenew set. And then the rest of them I did with Catherine Pooler inks because they're literally right in front of me on my desk. And that goes to show you that whatever's on your desk is probably what's going to get used more. So I decided that the colors I wanted to use were purple, pink, orange, and yellow. And I'm starting off with Catherine Pooler's Sweet 16 ink in the solid stamp. And then I'm going over with the detail stamp in Grape Crush. And that's going to give me a nice purple ice cream cone. I'm cleaning my stamps between with a baby wipe, nothing special there. Again, Catherine Pooler inks are such that you don't have to super duper clean your stamp really well between switching colors. They're just special in that way. So as you see, the cardstock that I'm using is Nina 80-pound Solar White, which is probably the most commonly used cardstock amongst everybody for everything. So then we just did, I think I did party dress on top of that. Now I'm doing Bellini, like peach Bellini, which comes out a lot darker than I expected, but I have swatches right to the left. You can't see them off camera, kind of looking at the color families. Catherine Pooler's inks are amazing, and she's adding to her collection constantly, but I don't know that they're really truly made to layer as far as the color families that are currently available. It works, don't get me wrong. Works just fine, but I don't know that, you know, um, that she's building her color selection, so. But right now there are enough to layer, at least for what I'm doing. I'm only doing two colors. The ice cream scoop, this one only has two layers, so not a big deal. And it's fairly easy to layer. You can see I did a pretty good job of getting right on top of them for the most part. And so I didn't cut or edit any of this. We're just going to go all the way through the process. It sped up a bit, but this card took a little while, kind of because I didn't have a plan about where I was going to go. So now I'm just cutting this out to make it go through my die cut machine easier. I'm using my Gemini Junior. Now this is what I don't like about it. I talk about it all the time. You cannot cut with the blade facing down toward the magnetic strip. And so it's really hard to line up the die on top of the cardstock because you can't see it. That's not true. You have to just tape it. That's all. In my Cuttlebug, I was able to face it downwards the way that the sandwich worked, and it was just easier, but whatever. I need to get over it. You just need to use a little purple tape to hold it in place, and it's not a big deal. I get a little annoyed, but really, is it the end of the earth? No. So I die cut all my pieces, and I went back and grabbed that same piece because you guys know that I do not keep scrap sheets of paper, so I try to use up as much of the card as I can. I just have more paper than anyone can use in a lifetime, so I don't keep little scraps. It just gets on my nerves. This is that pixie dust spray that everybody's been using. It's a temporary adhesive. It's a light tack adhesive. And I just got my blender brushes in, so I wanted to use those. I'm putting a little bit of repositionable tape on the back of the cardstock and taping it down to my glass mat, my Tim Holtz work surface. I sprayed the back with the pixie spray and let it dry for about a minute, and now I'm getting ready to do some ink blending. Usually I'm very protective of my Catherine Pooler inks, and I would never try this, but I don't know. I was like, whatever. If I mess them up, I'll just buy some more. That was literally what I told myself because I'm very, very protective of those ink pads. So I'm tapping it lightly, but because it's foam, it releases ink pretty quickly. I don't know. I'm still getting used to brushes, but you know, you do what you do. So now I am going at a diagonal angle, blending multiple colors. So I started off with yellow, and now I'm going back with one of the oranges that I used. I think I grabbed the darker color of the ice cream scoops. Yeah, because that's Tutti Frutti, which is the darker color that I stamped on the ice cream cone. And now I'm just looking for a purple or a pink. I couldn't remember which color I used. These brushes, they worked. I have to get used to it. I think ink blending, I'm so used to using a foam and I'm so used to saturated color and being able to control it a little better, I think. I don't know. I had to have these brushes and I bought two sets because I want to be able to use them with oxides. Now I see people do amazing stuff with the oxides in these brushes. So when I say amazing, I think I'm just trying to say that the color is a little bit more saturated. I'm using a paper towel here to just hold it down so that I don't have ink all over my fingers. But I don't know that I was really controlling it the way I wanted to. So I peeled it back and there's my reveal. It reminds me totally of that candy that you used to peel off that was basically just hard sugar on a wax piece of paper. This is a shifter stencil. So I decided to actually shift it. So what you can't see are there are small circles on this stencil that I'm lining up with the circles that I've already stenciled. And now I can see open space. So the circles that I've already done are covered. And now I'm just going to go back in with these brushes. And I flipped it. So now I'm doing purple where I first did yellow. I flipped the cardstock around. But you can see the stencil is still in the same color order. So I'm just working my way back through the colors, but I flipped the cardstock so that the purple is now next to the yellow. Just playing with it, kind of curious to see what was going to happen. Was again not planned. I very rarely have an idea or a card sketch or anything in my head. I just kind of go for it, and you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Hope for the best, and hope that I am not doing something that comes out terrible that I can't use for footage. So far, so good. And I'm putting pressure, you can see with my first finger on the top of the brush. And then I'm just kind of wiping off the excess color. They say that you do not need to wash these brushes between switching in the same color family. And I thought that's interesting. You just wipe off as much of the color as you can and then you go right into the next color. And there we go. It's pretty. I don't know how come there's like a super duper dark pink. I don't know. Got to figure out how to work these brushes. That stuff is tacky, but it left a residue on my cardstock. So it was picking up lint and my handprints kind of. I could feel it. So I don't know how I feel about that spray just yet, but we'll figure it out. Again, it was my first time using it. There's a learning curve to all the things. Next, we're going to cut down this cardstock. This is why I love having card templates so that I can kind of look at it, kind of gauge how big the ice cream cone is going to be, what size I want to use. I reference it all the time. I pull it out all the time. So I think I decided to do a 7.5 by 3.25 inch card. I did. I wanted a little bit more space because I wanted to show that background that I just worked so hard on. So this is where I messed up, but I don't think you can see it. I am scoring on the wrong side. Can you see that is, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, why isn't this even? Because I scored on the 7.5 inch side. So then I just cut another piece of cardstock and scored on the proper side, which would be the 6.5 side, and I scored at 3.25. And there we go. Now the panel, I think measured, I forget. So it's 3.25, but I know that I had to trim it down a little bit. The length. I'm not talking about the width, obviously the width. And then I just trimmed it down to where I thought it was pretty, where I could see the most full circles. Um, Look at how I'm trimming down the bottom there. I'm trimming off the white space. Just make a pretty panel. And that worked. It was a little bit long. I think the card measured 7.5 and I didn't get quite a 7.25 inch panel, so I took off a 1/4 inch. And then I think the panel is 7 inches, and then I get a quarter border all around. So my panel is 7 inches and the card is 7.25 instead of 7.5 long. So I decided that I can't just put those ice cream cones directly on those dots. It was just going to be too busy. So I decided to put a vellum to break it up. Give it a little rest in the center there. So we'll put a strip of vellum. It just offsets it just enough. So I'm gluing down my cardstock with wet glue so that I can wiggle it around just in case I get it off a little bit. And I think I did get it off. So then just wiggle it until it's right. Here's a trick. When your blade is not as sharp as it's supposed to be and it has those little fuzzies on the end and you don't feel like sanding it with a nail file, take a blade and go the opposite direction than you cut, and those will just tuck right under and you'll look like you'll have a super perfect edge. Now I'm grabbing my corner chomper and I'm just rounding the corners of the vellum, and I'm sticking it right all the way up to the top of the panel, and I'm hiding the tape behind where I know the ice cream is going to be, because the tape is, I mean, vellum, you're looking straight through it. So you're always trying to figure out where you can glue stuff down without it being seen. So there is the cone. I'm gluing it down, and then we're just going to start stacking our scoops. I think this card is so cute, but there are so many things that I should have done to it. I should have kept going with the embellishments. It really did need like some bling, as people say, or some sparkle. But because it was late at night, I was trying to get this footage done. I didn't want to wait for it to finish. And it also needed some glossy accents on the cherry that I decided to add last minute. It needed some bling. I am looking at it right now like, oh, it would be so cute if there was bling in the circles. I'm putting this in my Tim Holtz platform to get the perfect stamp set. Too much work on the background to have to start over. So I'm picking up the stamp. I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair for the sentiment because I need it dark and crisp, because I'm going directly on top of that panel. I'm not backing it with anything. So it's kind of busy, but I needed the black to stand out, which it worked just fine. That's somewhat lazy card. It's kind of lazy card making. I hate the sentiment part. I do not feel like stamping it on another sheet of paper, cutting it out. I really need to start working with my sentiments first. If I do that first and build the card around there, I'd probably be a lot happier. You guys know I never put a sentiment where it should go in the center. It's always going to be off, up, to the right, to the left. And I think that one says happy birthday, sweet thing. Now, for the coolest thing ever, I bought a ton of these amplified neons from Imagine Crafts. And what they are, if you're familiar, is liquid applique. So basically, it comes out like puffy paint. And when you heat it, it curdles. So it's great when you see it all the time for a holiday, because everybody has it in white. And so, yeah, they come off like puffy paint, and they're cool. But everybody has them around Christmas time. You see them um, in white for snow and Santa's beard. And you used to see them on cards with popcorn. I wish I had some popcorn stamps. I might have some, because I would totally make like rainbow popcorn. I bought all the colors that they have available. I had seen it at Scrapbook Expo, and then I couldn't find them anymore. And I was like, where do they go? So I reached out to the company that had them, and she told me where to get them. So I'm putting down all the layers at the same time. And then we are going to, then I took the cherry and put some glue on it and stuck it in there. I really should have put some glossy accents on that cherry. That would have really punched up this card, I think. But again, I didn't like to wait, and God forbid I wait a whole day to show the video and film and all that. Look at it. See, I'm heating it up and it curdles. It gives it so much texture. It's so cute. I love it. Something, something different, something to do. I started to cover the entire ice cream cone, and I'm glad I didn't. I think just putting it where the accents were, the darker colors were, really kind of gives it a little something. So I decided to make my envelope an easy envelope, and just grabbed a 12 by 12 aligned black and white sheet of paper. I really need to make a line of fabric and cardstock because it would look just like this. They're just not, this is the lightest weight cardstock ever, and I'm not pleased with it, but it's the look that I was going for. I didn't want to make I don't know, just kind of trying to move quickly through this card. Remember, when you have long rectangular cards, you're going to have to take off the bottom and take off some for the top, because when you fold it, it will overhang. You'll see here when I fold it why I had to cut off the top. Otherwise, it would have been in the way. You see that one? I'm going to have to cut too. So because this is super light cardstock, I can use my Tombow glue runner, not an issue. And then I'm going to need to take off the tip. I like to take off a little bit more than the tip because I seal everything and I don't want the seal running off the bottom. And there we go. Card, it is finished. Now we are going to seal the back as usual. I am using the good wax. Oh, that other card I totally screwed up because I used poor wax. This wax melts so much faster, so much nicer, pours so much smoother. It's what I should have been using all along. And yes, that's just a spaghetti stick that I used to light it. So here we go. I like to pour nice and slow and try to wait for it to cool down a little bit so that it pours like syrup and it doesn't just go running everywhere. The seal that I'm using is massive. I want to say it's about an inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches. And I just plop it in there and wait for it to dry. And I'm using a Black Panther seal today because why not? Why not? Definitely one of my favorite seals that I own. I really want to buy more seals. But seals are expensive. They cost you about 20, 25 bucks a pop. It's off to the right a little bit. That's my fault, but I've decided that I love it anyway. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Leave any questions, comments down below.